So once again, I want to welcome everyone for joining us for our Design Paths 101, What Design is Right for You event. In the past, we've broken down all the design paths and done a different event for each one. And then we had feedback that people are like, I don't know which one, and I don't want to go to 4 events all back to back to back. So now we've created this event. And that being said, if there are things you want to know about, reach out to me or Jeff or Tim, and we will try and make it happen for you so you get the information that you need. Tonight, we are going to keep the chat closed, but if you have any questions, there's a little Q&A button down at the bottom. You can ask any of your questions, and we'll make sure they get answered by the end of the night. So if you put up a question maybe in a couple minutes and we still haven't answered it in 45 minutes, I promise you before the night is over, we will answer it. We will circle back. We just try and interject those where they make sense based on the presentation. And so, yeah, we're going to go over all of our different design paths. With us tonight, we have Tim O'Reilly. As he mentioned, he's a small home advisor in Massachusetts. So if you're building in Massachusetts and choose to build with us, then Tim will be your guy. And then in Maine, we have Jeff Bowman. Again, if you're building from Maine, then he'll be the person walking you through the entire process from beginning to end. So welcome.
Great, let's get started.
I missed things. I think I
Nope,
got it.
it'll be recorded.
Yeah,
and there's no such thing as a bad question, so please use that Q&A. Jeff and I have a lot to cover tonight. We could probably talk for 2 hours. But what really makes this event is getting to answer your questions live as we're going through things. We'll also share tonight our email addresses. If you have really specific questions, often related to your town or your specific property, email Jeff if you're in Maine, or email me if you're in Mass. And we can dive into those. All right, let me share my screen and we will get started.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, April.
Yeah.
So hopefully you know who we are by now. We are Backyard ADUs. We have a key 3 tonight. So we're gonna do a quick introduction. If you haven't been to one of these before, or you haven't met Jeff or myself, we'll introduce ourselves. We're gonna look at our design path overviews tonight. We're gonna go over sort of how we've approached this process of building small homes, and especially with offsite construction, and how we guide people through that process. And then we're going to go look at a bunch of small homes that we've designed, look at key features, look at examples. We have a bunch of photos as well as some 3D walkthroughs that we're excited to share with you. So Jeff and I are small home advisors. I gave someone my card the other day. She looked at it. She said, "What the heck is a small home advisor?" And I was a little taken aback. And I realized that that's not a term you really hear, or a job description. But the reason we've structured this is there's so many unknowns as you approach construction and thinking about, how to build, for family, for loved ones, for siblings, and some people for rental income. And so Jeff and I's job is to be your advisor. And throughout the process, to look at all the unknowns and to interface with all the different teams, with the design team, with the engineering team, with the construction team, with costing. And so we help people through the whole process figure out not only design 101, what's going to work for you, but how's this going to work in your town and on your property. So we're here to answer your questions. Here are our emails. You'll see them again at the end. But that's sort of the down low on how Jeff and I approach our job and what we're here to do.
Yep. If you're interested in ADUs and we're not able to answer your questions today, then definitely reach out to Tim or myself if you're up here in the Northeast, and we'd be happy to help you along the path.
Yeah, and even if you aren't, we're happy to point you in the right direction if you're in a region that we currently don't serve.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been around for a little over 4 years, and at this point I'd have to go and count, somewhere over 40 homes built. So we have learned a lot, not only navigating town bylaws and what's possible, but diving into designs and trying to figure out within the constraints of how big we can build, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, sometimes 3 bedrooms, where are we maximizing each and every one of those square feet to make sure that there's the livability and the functionality of a much bigger house in that smaller footprint. So if we have approached designing and building with our offsite factory, we've sort of developed this menu of design paths. So most people you'll see here within sort of around, 500 to 1,200 square feet can get the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms. We'll look at tonight a couple bonus rooms. We're going to look at indoor space, but also outdoor space. How do the two play off of each other? How do you plan to live on that property? Because maybe if you're constrained by a town bylaw, you can only build 700 square feet. That's the floor plan we're going to look at tonight. How do we pack the most on the inside, but also plan for, 3-season use, whether that's a porch or a deck, a 3-season room, or a patio. Great.
Sometimes with that, to bounce off what you said there, Tim, sometimes most of the time when you have a hard limit like the 700 square foot limit that you mentioned, that's usually livable space. So we can oftentimes make a extra room or a 3-season room or an entryway that kind of makes the house feel a little larger, and that doesn't calculate toward your total livable space.
Absolutely. And then another piece there we're going to look at tonight is accessibility. Often folks, when they're planning an ADU, whether it's for family or for a loved one, they're thinking about how am I going to use it now, but how is it going to serve me in the future? So you'll see with a lot of these photos here, parking, where am I going to park? How am I going to access the ADU? It is a key component that we're also dialing in when we're thinking about design, because not only what are we going to build, how's it going to work on your site and work for you? So the L line is very common within that footprint. It's a really comfortable 2-bedroom design. We'll look at tonight sort of a standard L line, but other ways you could customize it and make it fit your needs. The square is also very popular. That one's a little bit more flexible. We can get it smaller. You see there, 575 square feet. That's a really great 1-bedroom. Or, you can take that and make it bigger. Jeff, I know you just worked on one up in Booth Bay, where they're itching up towards 1,000 square feet. They have 2 really big bedrooms, a beautiful open concept kitchen living room, and then they plan for 2 baths. So in that square design, they tweaked it and made it fit their needs.
Can I just interject for a second? We've had about 10 more people jump on, so I just want to let everyone know that the chat is disabled, and if you have questions, just hit that Q&A button and you can send questions at any time and we'll be happy to answer them for you.
And then Averill right now is sitting in a boomerang. We're going to look at a floor plan of that tonight. And then the straight line is one that we built a lot of too. If I just need 1 bedroom, sometimes this also helps on a smaller lot where there's a smaller buildable area. That's a great option as well, but it's sort of more in that one bedroom realm. And then we have done a lot of custom homes. So tonight we're going to look at a couple, design paths, and then look at some key examples of how these have been modified to suit folks' needs. So I'm going to switch over here and pull this up. So when Jeff and I are working with clients and we do a design kickoff, we've already gone out and done a site visit as part of the feasibility. We're going to know roughly where this is going to be on site. We've already thought about those construction logistics of utilities, of access and parking. And now we're into the fun stuff of figuring out what are your needs, what's sort of our footprint, and then what's going to be contained inside those walls. The beauty of building off-site and in a factory is we can do this year round, but we also have a lot of flexibility when it comes to moving walls, moving windows, playing with different doorways and layouts. When we're thinking about building in a factory, our only constraint is widths and what we can ship down the road. But you'll see tonight and across all of our design paths, we're able to play around with our different box sizes to make that livability and functionality work. So what we're looking at here is a square. And this is that smaller square we were looking at, sort of a 1-bedroom in that, 500 to 700 square foot range. And you can see we're designing with 2 boxes in mind. And those 2 boxes are going to come together and have a marriage wall, which you can see in the middle of these floor plans is the double wall. And we can play around with that marriage wall and design cased openings, like in the bottom plan, where we see they've designed this much bigger bedroom. And because they knew it was just one bedroom here, they had a large opening where they could close those doors if they wanted to, but otherwise this small footprint is going to feel really big and open. Within that square, depending on your limitations, there's tons of different layouts for bathrooms as well. So this person in this case was designing with accessibility in mind. And we're going to talk about that later. Jeff's going to go over a couple slides with that. But the other thing I want to highlight here before we move on is the flexibility of designing these boxes. We can add more space as needed. So on our bottom floor plan, a mudroom and entryway was a big key. So we bumped that square out. We added a couple extra square feet, but now they have a landing zone. They come into the house, they have a deep storage closet, and they have a place to kick off their shoes before entering into the rest of the house. And so when we're designing in these small spaces, they're dedicating maybe, 80 to 120 square feet, depending on how big that space is, but it's getting that storage where you need it. So in that small space, this house probably won't be too cluttered if when they come in the door, all the things that they bring are stored immediately where they need it. Same in the bathroom. So in these bathroom layouts, this is their preference to have the washer and dryer in the bathroom. But what that means is they also have their linen storage right next to there. So in terms of laundry and functionality, it all lives in one place. The bedroom's the other spot where how much storage do you need in the bedroom and how much storage in general do you need? So storage where you need it is something we always keep in mind when we're looking at these plans.
And just to piggyback real quick on that, Tim, I love the idea of the airlock or the mud room on that bottom design. And you can see with the example on the, that one's got the nice double door for the closet. And then even the one above, even though it doesn't have necessarily a mud room, we still thought of a portico or somewhere to get in outside the rain and get outside of when you have your hands full of groceries, somewhere to land, at least for a second, to be able to get into the space. It does add some a bit of dynamic to the face of the structure, but then also it's functional for going in and out.
And we designed this one as well, as we knew, where are you going to come in? And so in this case, they're coming into the kitchen. They're going to have a landing zone for those groceries or for their bags. And so just thinking about what's our floor plan, but how is the inside and outside going to blend together? So this is that smaller square, but we can make it bigger. We can change our box width, but also change our box length. And so making our square a little bit bigger, we're into that 2-bedroom territory. So we're staying with the core principle of the open concept kitchen living room. This is allowing you furniture flexibility. It's also allowing you long views. So light is coming in as you're looking around your space. You have multiple angles. You can see outside through windows. You can see outside through doors, and it makes that space feel much bigger. But again, we have the flexibility to move around walls, to move around windows. In this case, looking at storage, when we're at this bigger square size, huge storage in the master bedroom. We also designed, in this case, extra space around the bed. So if they need furniture in their bedroom, they'd have the space for that. Notice bathrooms here as well. In this case, the laundry is outside of the bathroom. If that's your preference, you can play around with those. But also, where is that storage? So they have linen storage. Even though it's a small closet, it's only 14 inches deep. That space, floor to ceiling, for plenty of shelves for all those items that you still want to have in your house. How do you fit the paper towels and the toilet paper and everything else? You're going to have a spot to store that. Great. So squares, it's a really nice option. They often fit well on a lot. And when you're thinking about, especially that classic New England roof and look, we can play around with that roof pitch, to make it really fit in the lot. We've done a lot of these. I think you've done a bunch of them up in Maine as well, Jeff, where if it's being built as an ADU, depending on where it's situated on the lot. I'm thinking about one we built in Harwich. It really does look like its own house. It's technically an ADU, but it's right off the driveway. It's got that great Cape look and the functionality. She went with the 2 bedrooms. She has so much storage.
That's great.
All right, the L line. This one, I think, well, I guess it was the second house we ever built. And we seem to every year keep copying and copying it because it is such a great layout. So this too, built off site, is 2 boxes put together with a marriage wall. And there's different ways we can arrange that. The L really sets itself up nicely for 2 bedrooms. The boomerang would be sort of the 1 bedroom equivalent, but there's a lot of different options here. So again, much like the square, we can adjust our box length to add things such as a mudroom, and we're going to look at later. You could bump that out and do a 3-season porch. You could do a screen porch. There's a lot of great options. Open concept kitchen living room, and then thinking about how am I going to enter in, how am I going to exit, and how's everything going to fit that I need. Great. And then the S line. So the S line here is really that 1 bedroom, like I was mentioning. But even in that smaller space, normally around 500 to 600 square feet, it's a really open, and that kitchen living room feels big. And then depending on how you want to use it, how you want to lay out the kitchen, do you cook a lot? Do you need island storage? There's ways that we can make that space functional for you. So the bottom example here, they're prioritizing the kitchen. They don't need a table. They're going to have the overhangs, and it's all going to fit.
Something I want to note with these are some of the floor plans and design. This is supposed to give you an example of some of the things that we can do. When you do become one of our clients, you're not going to have to choose between one of these 8 homes that we've shown today. This is just an example of some of the different layouts, how we've been able to design certain livable areas among different design paths that we have as a jumping off point. But they are not necessarily, if you like one of these and you say, I don't want to change a single thing, you could go that route. But I'd say 99% of the time, that's not what my clients end up saying or wanting to go with. They want to customize it and personalize it. And we're, as a small home advisor, here to help you and to make that house what you want it to be.
That is a perfect transition, Jeff. So let's go look at some examples of how we take those.
Could you put up that slide one more time? People are just asking about comparing the exterior of the house with the interior of the house. So just like circling back to look at those. Specifically.
And that's a really great point. Oftentimes when you're thinking, how's this going to look? This is that square, that classic sort of Cape style roof line. This is either a 10-12, I believe that's a 10-12. So it's a fairly steep roof. There's a lot of volume there. If you wanted that real capey, you could go even steeper to the 12-12.
It's great for solar too, that one. The solar panels, people put solar panels on that because it's a lot of space.
Yep. And then highlighted the other one for solar in the Demona here. There's a carport. You could always build a carport for solar. And I have had a couple clients look at solar on an S line or on an L line. It's a great transition. Actually, our homes are all net zero ready. So depending on your solar exposure and exactly how big your house is, you could be net zero if you look into adding solar to your house. So all of our houses, regardless of your design path, are going to come that way. Super well insulated, all electric, and very energy efficient. But we were transitioning. We were going to look at, hey, these are some sort of, touch points down the design paths. We have a lot of flexibility. Let's see how we played around with the flexibility in here.
Yeah, great. So something that often comes up is when designing these with our customers is accessibility and being able to age in place in one of these ADUs. Not all customers, but a lot of our clients are thinking about this in a long-term fashion, somewhere for them to live, not necessarily rent out. So the idea of what is ADA compliant versus accessible, and how much does the client want to build toward either goal, is a conversation we often have, and we have gone down both paths and are pretty well versed in both areas. So, was there anything particular on this slide that you wanted to mention, Tim?
Yeah, I think something I'd highlight too is we were just talking about the inside outside. So in this case, she knew an L is what she wanted in terms of curb appeal, but also getting both bedrooms and, as is highlighted here, having space for her hobbies. But she decided in that nook to do a stamped concrete patio. And that for her is like, look, it's going to be the house. I'm going to have all the space I need inside. But when it is beautiful all summer long, this one was built out in Western Mass. She also has a great view of Mount Tom. And so she knew she was going to have that outdoor space to have friends over, to eat dinner with family. The other one here too, as we're going to see, is she knew this is the house I'm going to live in for a long, long time. So I want to plan for now, but also later. So she added in here, you'll see there's extra space around the toilet, between the toilet and the shower. So she knows if she's ever in a walker, this isn't an ADA compliant bathroom, but she's going to have the space she needs to navigate, whether she's in a walker or using a walker or with a caretaker. And then same sort of having plenty of space around the beds to know that, you know, their accessibility won't be an issue down the road. Getting into the nitty gritty of the bathroom. This is what I mean by an ADA bathroom. On the left, there's a 5-foot diameter circle. And so you can see that's awesome in a wheelchair. You're going to be able to move and maneuver. There's also shown here, it's hard, you know, in this view, it's a pedestal sink. So you'd have no problem rolling right up to it and using it. But that is a lot of clear space. And when we're designing in a small space, every square foot matters. So if you want the ADA, it is possible. That may eat into your living room. You know, you may not be able to fit, you know, an oversized armchair and a couch if we're taking a couple extra square feet here to the bathroom where it might be needed. So accessibility, this bathroom on the right, we can't fit that 5-foot circle, but we still have plenty of space in front of the shower to get in and out. We have the ability to add grab bars around the toilet. This vanity, although you can't roll up to it and be underneath it, will have a bunch of storage in there. So when we're designing and being that small home advisor, we're thinking about what do we need it for now, but also long-term, and where are we making these small trade-offs in the grand scheme of however many square feet we're designing in.
Yeah,
And how many square feet is that specific example you just gave?
Yeah, let's look at it. I don't have exact dimensions. Oh, there we go. 10.6 by 6.10.
What about the full outline?
the larger one.
This is 810 square feet. So this is our classic L line, 2-bedroom with the accessible bathroom. In her case here, I helped her design this one. She knew she wanted a table, so that meant she did a furniture island. We'll look at some other designs tonight where if you want to prioritize an island in your kitchen, that's possible. And then here she did want sort of that entryway to have a separate, you know, area for coats and shoes and closet storage to all fit there. So yes, 810 square feet. You'll also see the expansion areas here. We gave her the option if you wanted to make it bigger. You could either expand on either side of that L if you wanted to make it more.
Great.
Yeah.
We also have, we did a ADA and accessibility event back, I believe, end of January or beginning of February. So that also is on our Zoom if anyone wants to watch it, if they are interested in that.
Great. So this is an example.
Questions. Can we get
a couple? Let's do it. Yeah.
Sure.
A couple are related to finance, so we'll do those later, but do you ever retrofit existing structures on a property into ADUs, or do you only work with new construction?
That's a really great question. So ADUs can typically be detached, attached to an existing house, or retrofitted, renovating a garage or an attic or a basement. Backyard ADUs is equipped to do detached ADUs and attached ADUs. We don't right now have the capacity to go into your house and retrofit an attic or a basement or a garage. If you're not sure what's right for you, Jeff and I could look at your property and see what's there and help guide you on what might be the best option. And often if it's looking like, hey, retrofit this garage or basement, Jeff and I might be able to point you, in the right direction.
Yeah,
that's a great question.
How much interior space should be allocated for basement stairs?
That's a really great question. So oftentimes when people are thinking about a basement, at least in my experience, they're worried about storage, or they're also thinking about future space. Hey, I'm limited to 700 square feet upstairs, but if I build a basement, I'm doubling my footprint. Awesome. That's great. What we do need to plan on, though, is exactly what this question is getting at, is how do we fit a staircase and a code compliant staircase? So typically speaking, that needs to be at least 3 feet wide, if not 3.5 feet, thinking about a railing. And depending on how deep that basement is, it's normally, if we're doing a straight staircase, about 13.5 feet. We can also look at doing an L staircase or a U-shaped staircase. So that's my long ranting answer, but it's going to take somewhere between 100 and 200 square feet, sort of depending on where we're at, to get in there. Or that's too much.
75 square feet is a pretty good one.
Great. Also, the ceiling height in the examples you're giving right now, do you know what those ceilings are?
Yep, we're going to look at some photos in a bit. These are renders. You can see this pink dotted line here. That's a cathedral ceiling. So it's going to go from 8 feet to almost 9.5 feet. But our renders, and you'll see in our photos, for our standard ceiling height is 8 feet.
Great.
Yeah.
And we'll do one more. The others, again, are related to cost, so we'll talk about that later. Can you talk more about the custom houses? Does that ever include working with outside architects?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, Jeff, you just worked on one of those recently, right?
Yeah, we had one here in Maine in South Portland where we were able to do a custom home, and we worked with an outside architect firm with that. It's a beautiful house, and we're happy with the way it turned out. We do have our own in-house architect and architects, whole engineering team. So we do come well equipped in that respect, but we have worked in the past with outside architects.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off that. We're going to look at some of these sort of more custom floor plans today. And in the general scheme of design, I hope one of the takeaways that people have tonight is the nuances of working in small design. And not all architects, have worked, designing an 800 square foot space, or a 530 square foot space. So we've learned a lot over, building 40 or more of these. And yeah, we're lucky to have that experience on our team.
Yeah. And even when we look at those photos, if you look on our, say, Instagram, for example, or on our social media, the look of all of those homes, even though you showed the exterior, they can look so different from that just by using that shape, like some of the monoplane roof lines and things. So it's not that you choose that design and that's what the exterior would look like exactly. I guess kind of what Jeff was saying earlier about the customization aspect of that.
Yep.
This is a great example where the customer sort of took that customization route. We ran with it. We basically took a square and we took an L and we smashed the two together in a nice, tasteful way. So this is the one I mentioned earlier. They were absolutely hard capped at 700 square feet, but they had a big list of things they wanted to fit in here. And so we worked room by room, square foot by square foot, and packed a lot into 700 square feet. So the things I want to highlight for everyone tonight is the kitchen. The kitchen was a priority for her. She does a lot of baking. She does a lot of cooking. She also does a lot of sewing projects. And so she knew I didn't really need a table, but I need functional surface where I could both host, cook, share a meal, but also lay out fabric, lay out projects, and do that. So in this small kitchen, we were able to fit sort of a reduced island where she has a ton of storage. She has that big space where she can lay out her fabrics, but she can also, in a more intimate space, host folks while she's cooking. So the renders are up here on the left, and we're going to go look at the Matterport and also some photos about how in that small space she was able to get everything she needed. We also needed to prioritize storage there. So we did a cabinet pantry, and we also left a little bit of space between that pantry and the rear exit door where she knew she could put a bar cart, or she could add more storage if she needed to. So that's something that we're going to look at. The other thing for her sewing projects was having a bonus room. She's like, I don't need a ton of space in my bedroom. I need a lot of storage. She had a walk-in closet, so a lot of hanging storage, but she just needed the bedroom for sleeping. She needed to get around the bed on both sides, planning for now and later, but she wanted to prioritize and give some space to this bonus room. So designing in a small space, we're able to fit that in. And traditionally, it's not really big enough for a bedroom, but in this small space, we knew that she could have a furniture bookcase. She could have her desk with the window. It's going to feel much bigger than, how it might look on paper. And then how do you access that? The doorway there is sort of right off the kitchen and living room. So when you're in the living room, you're going to have this long view down the hall, but your eye will also sort of be drawn around the corner into that room. But if you're also working on a big sewing project and there's fabric everywhere and someone's coming over, you can shut the door, it's hidden, and it's all self-contained. So this is how we were working on it in the design phase, and I wanted to show you tonight how it turned out. So on paper in 2D, it's really hard to visualize, but in 3D and all moved in, it's totally transformed. So she was able to fit the cart that she wanted for storage. She also fit sort of her bar cabinet here. And with her cute little stools, you can see all the cabinet space that she has, this 2-foot wide pantry, and then the full-size appliances. Because again, cooking was important. She didn't want to skimp on any of those. And then she has this island where she could share a meal, she could host, but she could also clear all that stuff off and be all set to do a big project. Oh, and I don't have it on slides, but let's hop over onto the Matterport.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at that bonus room. I didn't have great photos. This was before she moved in. It looks a lot less barren. Someone asked earlier about ceiling heights. This is this cathedral ceiling. So it's 8 feet on the right, and it slopes all the way up to above 9 feet. And even in this smaller space, it's giving it a little bit more volume, which really adds a lot. Fortunately, I took this at night, so you don't get to see, like we are right now, the beautiful light streaming in during the day. But these 2 windows in the corner really open up that space. She's got big views, and with the full light door out the back, she's got a great view of the woods out to the back of her property. So this is how that bonus turned out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I like the drop ceiling, the almost cased opening between the kitchen and the living space. That really separates those 2 rooms nicely, makes it feel larger when you do those kind of design aspects.
And it's a great highlight of building offsite. This is that marriage wall where the 2 boxes come together. And people often think, this is going to make my space feel cramped. I can't remember the exact dimension, but we can do these big, large openings between the boxes. And just like you said, Jeff, really open it up, but also clearly define those spaces. So this is our bonus room. So you can see that it's got the pocket door that just hides away. And then you've got that long view out the window. And when she moves in, she'll have space along the wall here. It has its own mini split head. So she can go ahead and do furniture bookshelves. She could do a built-in. I'm working on a client right now who's looking at doing a Murphy bed in a similar space because they do want to be able to host or have guests, and that might be another great option in a space like this. We could design with that in mind. So yeah, just want
In
to show.
the living room kitchen, do you know how low that carrying beam goes?
Yep. So it goes, that's right into our 8-foot ceiling.
But how low the beam is it level? It looks like it's inset in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure how low this one is inset. It depends on your house and your design. Some of them are flush and some of them in this case are a little bit inset. Depending on that span will depend on what timber is above and what carrying capacity that needs to have.
Yeah.
But it does create that shelf, which like Jeff said, sort of defines the two, which is.
Yeah, from my experience, that does seem to be variable. You're not set at a fixed height for that. You know, if you wanted to make that opening a little bit more narrow, you might be able to gain some height with that shelf height.
Yeah, without having the engineering drawings in front of me, it's somewhere at like 6'9" or thereabouts. So it does provide a little shelf, but again, that can move depending on your ceiling height. I'm glad I stopped here. The last note I had on this one was, again, thinking about these long views, is you have this really nice view down to the hallway to the bedroom. But what that also means when you turn around is you have that view right out the back door through the full light. And even though this is only 700 square feet, it feels much bigger than that. The bathroom is the last thing I wanted to highlight. On the floor plan, we wanted to design, again, functionality now and accessibility long-term. So we actually ended up leaving and offsetting the door about 18 inches. So that gives her the flexibility for most furniture storage, you know, whether it's IKEA or somewhere else, to have some sort of organizer or shelves or system to fit snugly behind that door, where she can still navigate this space. If she ever needed the extra couple inches, she could remove that piece of furniture. Her bathroom is still fully functional here. And she also has her washer and dryer where she needs it, and a seat for now, and the ability to add grab bars later if you wanted to.
Great.
What is outside that entry door? A portico or just steps?
Yeah, let's go look at that right now. So in her case, oh, did I not add it? Shoot, I didn't add it. I had an exterior photo, but what this is bringing the outside inside. It is a covered porch. So she has, we'll see the note there, covered porch, railing, and support posts. So I forgot to add it, but integrated in her design, she was capped at 700 square feet from the town, but that outdoor space doesn't matter. So now she has a place to, again, host people outside. She's covered from the elements, and it's a really great thing. If she ever wants to screen it in, we're going to look at an example of that soon. Screen porch or porch now, covered porch now, the ability to screen it in later. That was on her radar as well.
And we can include that in the email too. We have a few questions about this property specifically.
Okay.
Why do the cupboards not go all the way to the ceiling?
Yeah. So when we're designing, there's options to have cabinets all the way to the ceiling. Some people prefer to have that space. In her case, can I zoom in here? She collects teapots. So all along that space there, she knew she wanted to highlight her teapot collection. They're a little hard to see, but there's a lot of nice, beautiful teapots there. So in her case, this was her preference. When we're thinking about cost, the full height cabinets are a little bit more. It really comes down to what is your aesthetic preference and how do you plan to use that storage. So, okay, they go to the ceiling, you get a little bit extra space in the cabinet, or do you have a teapot collection and you want to highlight it in your small kitchen?
Yeah, I'd say we often build up to the ceiling as well, but it does come down to customer preference, and there is a slight cost difference, although it's not too much.
And I would think too, the height to reach sometimes may not be something that someone wants.
That's Yeah, I'm
There's a lot of
working with a few
variables.
customers,
Yeah.
with that right now, where they claim to be, and they're small, they're petite people, and so they don't want to have to climb. They're like, if it goes all the way to the ceiling, I'm never going to be able to use that space. So why do it?
And in her case, she knew she's going to have that pantry. She's going to have a ton of storage there. And then also the island. So she knew in that island space, she has pull-out drawers. Everything she needs is going to be right there. That's
And
a
then
great
last
question.
question is, what are the floors in this model?
Yeah, this is luxury vinyl plank. So she picked this exact color and texture. There's a bunch of different options when it comes to flooring. A lot of people go with the luxury vinyl plank these days. There's just so many options, so many colors. It's also water resistant, whereas there's also a lot of people that still prefer a hardwood, whether that's an engineered hardwood or a pre-finished hardwood. But yeah, we're able to do both. Tile in the bathroom is another one. We didn't see that in this one. But people often, if you're doing a bump out mudroom entryway, sometimes you want tile there or tile in the bathroom in those spaces where there might be weather and elements to have a nice tile floor.
I lied, I have another one.
Great.
How are these units heated and cooled?
Yes, great question. So we're doing all electric. So when it comes to heating and cooling, it's a mini split compressor, and most people are doing the heads up on the wall. Some people choose a floor mounted unit, or if you have a basement and the ability to run ductwork, you could also do an air handler. But in general, it's all electric.
Are heated floors possible too?
Yeah, in that tile, like I was talking about in the bathroom, there's a couple options for a heated floor mat. If you're looking to do the whole house in radiant, that's sort of another level of construction logistics and price. So we might need a secondary system. You can't mix your domestic hot water with your radiant floor system. So we often need to have a second system. So it is possible. There's different tiers of complexity and cost.
Questions
Great.
keep coming in, but we'll keep rolling and we'll interject in a little bit.
All right. I'll finish my rant soon. The last one I wanted to highlight was a square. These are two customers I work with, and they just moved in October. When we were designing with them, I cannot take credit for a lot of the brilliant things we'll look at here. They knew exactly what they wanted. They're young professionals. They're moving into the backyard where their sister's in the main house, and they knew we want to build exactly what we want, and we're going to be here for a long time. So one of the two folks moving in does sound recording, and he needed an office and a space he could close off and soundproof. So we designed within their footprint this small office with its own door. It also we added some sound channel clipping and some insulation to make this room really, really, really quiet. They also knew, you'll see sort of along this marriage wall here, there's a lot of different gaps. And so they designed in here nooks for storage. So in that hallway bedroom, they've done these offsets in the wall where they can add furniture storage now. And when they're ready, do custom build-ins. So they're going to add a desk in front of the window in the office. And then there's also that nook there for shelf storage. Same in the bedroom. They have their big deep closet for clothes storage, but they have this recessed nook where they can add more storage that they're going to need. In the dining room, they were keen on having an eat-in nook. So as you come in off the screen porch, there's a half wall, and they were going to build in later their dining nook. They had a table in mind and some benches in mind. And so we designed this space to be sort of that open corner where windows on both sides, your table's going to be right there. You're going to drink a cup of coffee and watch the sunrise across, in their case, this neat meadow. The last thing I want to highlight here is into the living room. They're like, hey, there's two of us moving in. I think this thing was 720 square feet. We want to occasionally have some privacy from each other. So let's put these double pocket doors in and be able to close off the living room. And this space was about 11 by 11, but how do we make that feel bigger? Multiple views, multiple windows, but also that bay window on front. And that really helps bring the outside inside. It's about a $3,500 line item, but it really makes that space feel bigger. So they packed a lot into their design. Storage where they need it. They walk in, coat closet. In the kitchen, they have a pantry. In the bathroom, they got a nook for their washer and dryer. And then they designed these offsets in the walls for furniture storage or built-ins, including here in this hallway in between the bathroom and bedroom. They had a piece of furniture that they knew was going to go right there. And then have that big, deep closet for all their storage in the bedroom. All right, Jeff, take it away.
Yeah. So we've gotten some feedback that it's nice to have some photos and things for folks to look at when we're doing these. So I wanted to try to get as many photos here toward the end of the presentation as possible. So there are some design features that I like to consider. These are kind of fall in line with more of the custom models that we had talked about. They may take inspiration from one of the L lines or Square or any of our other models, and then just either add on to or use it just as a jumping off point. Some features that I wanted to point out here are vaulted ceilings, kind of a 1.5 story type ADUs, a screened porch, which is actually going up, being built right now. It's all already screened in out of the door this last week. It looks really sharp. And then another kind of cased opening on the photos on the left there, the renderings on the left, that kind of help separate the different rooms. And there's some photos actually of that, I think, on the next slide. Oh, no.
These are my photos. This is that modified square we were looking at. So I unfortunately only had construction photos, but in the top right here, you can sort of on the edge of the screen see those pocket doors. And then even though that room is sort of only a little bit smaller than 11 by 11, that bay window brings the outside inside. It's got its own mini split head there, so they can heat and cool it accordingly. But they packed everything they needed. And then their kitchen, you can see part of that half wall where they're going to have their eat-in nook, but also that long view where they're going to be able to look all the way out the house through the back. And then their kitchen, it's open, it's functional. On the exterior here, they want to screen this in later, but they knew we wanted this feature now. So that the porch is built, it's covered, and they can come screen it in when they're ready.
Looks great.
And they when we designed it, it's what's the curb appeal? So having that dimension, the offset roofs, and then that bay window too sort of pops out that in that space that would have sort of been a little bit less 3D.
Yeah, that double gable roof is nice. Nice feature there. Okay, yeah. Wanted to go through some of the design features. So some work in progress photos and then a finished photo. We love our vaulted ceiling. So Averill had mentioned monoplane roof style. That's where almost a shed style roof, sometimes it's referred as, but where instead of a classic gable roof, it's one long plane, monoplane. So this is a house that we did that ended up adding a lofted space above the bedroom and bathroom area. So from the kitchen, you have an open living room, kitchen concept, lots of storage. And then above, you have even more storage. You can probably throw some bunks or beds for kids to be able to sleep up there if you so chose, or use it for all kinds of storage space there. It's actually a pretty large cavity up there that they designed.
We didn't highlight it a lot tonight, Jeff. I'm looking at those bypass doors on the closet. And when we're thinking in a small space, we're often thinking what type of door to use. Is it going to swing? Is it going to bypass? Is it a pocket? Is it a bifold? So I see like, hey, walking through that hallway, you don't want a door swinging open. But to access all that storage, just push the door right out of the way. That's neat.
Yeah, exactly. And even a, this is a bypass, a bifold door where it's more of an accordion door, would still possibly clog up that hallway. So having that bypass really allows that walkability. Okay, so separating spaces, something I definitely want to touch on. So this is we saw the floor plans earlier. This is still a work in progress. It's not quite done. We're just finishing up the siding on the house. Should be wrapped up probably in the next week or so. But work in progress here. You come in through the front door. You have a nice open area kitchen to your left. You have a nice eat-in bar there where you can drop off your keys. Where I took this photo is a great spot to be able to put a bench and some hooks for kind of an entryway area. They have nice space for a small eat-in table, kind of in this dining room where the sunlight's hitting the floor there. That's a nice, you can put a nice smaller table that has a fold out ability table there, but then they also have this nice eat-in bar that goes to the kitchen. So that's typically how they tend to use the space. And then they have a cased opening off of their 8-foot ceiling here. So that comes down, looks like maybe a foot, maybe slightly less than a foot. But that cased opening goes to a living room area. They used the L line floor plan. They had an 800 square foot maximum that they had to abide by in their town for 88 ADU rules. But they only wanted one bedroom. So whereas our boomerang is typically the one bedroom accommodation, we actually took the larger floor plan that was an L line, a 2-bedroom, and deleted one of the bedrooms and just made all of the living spaces a little larger, which felt really nice. They also utilized a bay window in the living space over there, which really helped open up the room.
Yeah, and they dropped it down. That's great. That's a neat feature.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Yeah, they wanted to have a place, a nook where you could hang out in the living room, be by the fire, but use it as a sitting space and just a nice cozy area. It feels really nice in there.
I'm sure if they have pets, they're going to love it. It'll be a big perch.
Yep, exactly.
Great.
Okay. Yeah. And this is the floor plan of actually the same ADU. I went pretty hard on their ADU, but it's a really nice design and it's coming together really well. So this is on the right is a photo of their work in progress again, but their screen porch. We went ahead and screened it in for them. It has a really nice cedar roof on the inside of there, but they're able to use this as 8 months out of the year. They're able to use this exterior space where it doesn't count toward their maximum living area. And then with that, you can see with the floor plan on the left, the way that they intend to use this space here. So a couple of things yeah.
This one highlights, we've been talking tonight, sort of everything that we can build and the flexibility that we have in our offsite facility. This is a really great example, Jeff, of we're not one dimensional. So we can build things on site. This entire porch was built on site, right? The porch, the foundation, the polished slab.
Exactly.
We designed, what are we building in the factory? And then what are we building on site? And how are these all going to come together?
A couple people are asking whether that there's a wood stove, a real fireplace, or a electric fireplace.
We've done them all. In this example, Jeff, you did this one where you can speak to what's there.
Yeah, they chose a wood stove for this one. They like the idea of wood. It's nice to have an alternative motive for heating in case the power does go out up here in rural Maine. That does tend to happen sometimes. So it's nice to be able to add that feature in if you'd like. Like Tim had said before, we build our ADUs 100% electric. So if you wanted to go ahead and add in a wood stove or anything like that, you can go ahead and do that. It would be just subcontracted through a wood stove provider.
Yeah, we don't provide the service in-house to install a wood stove, but we would design, hey, where's the space? What clearance do you need? How is the stove going to? If you're here in Massachusetts, our hands are tied to get mass save rebates to be all electric. We can install electric fireplaces. If you did want a gas insert, we would do our scope and you would do it again after you get occupancy and get that rebate.
Does that also apply to gas stoves?
Gas, like a range.
Range, I'm assuming, yeah.
Yep. So we've done several leases. Hey, let's plan on what we have now. Let's get you that rebate between 10 and 15 grand. And if you really want to cook with gas, you can come in after, whether that's, with a propane company and they're dropping a tank, or, connecting.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else to highlight, design path wise? I know we're a hair over 6 o'clock here.
And we have a lot of questions.
Oh, let's dive into questions.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay. Well, I'm like, where do I begin? Okay. So talking about heating, we'll stick there. What type of insulation is used for these homes? Are there different options, excuse me, depending on needs?
Great question, and great photo to answer the question. So what you see here is green. That is Zip R. So it is insulated sheathing. That is R9. Inside of our walls is typically fiberglass. So you have a really well insulated wall with continuous insulation around the house. In the attic, if we're doing a flat ceiling or a cathedral ceiling, we're blowing in R60 of cellulose. And then it's a little bit hard to see here, but our foundation material is an insulated concrete form. So we have the structural concrete and rebar, but on both sides, we have about 2 inches of insulation. So it's an R22 foundation. So insulated foundation, insulated walls, insulated attic. If you're doing, what's the photo we looked at earlier? Let's go back. If you're doing a vault, like this house that Jeff highlighted, you may need to change your insulation strategy. You may need to flash and bat and basically have a hot roof where we're in a smaller space, fitting the same amount of R value, our insulation value, to make sure that it's a super cozy and energy efficient home. So a couple different options, but typically this is what we're doing. Zip R, insulated walls, cellulose, and then our ICF foundation blocks.
And Jeff, you all mentioned mini splits. Do those even put out enough heat for the Northeast?
They certainly do. We had, this winter was pretty mild. Last winter, we had a cold snap where we got to, at least in Maine, the average was negative 14 degrees. It was in January of last year. And we checked in with all of our customers, made sure that they were okay and safe and all of those things. And not a single customer had their heat pump actually go out during that big winter snap. So they are enough. They come in different sizes, different powers. If you really wanted to have 2, you could do that. As Tim said, there's different ways that they operate. You can have them wall hung or ducted. But yeah, they are enough to heat these houses. And part of that reason too, to piggyback off what Tim was just talking about, is the insulation, how tightly built these houses are. They're very well insulated and very secure. All the windows and doors are all very tight.
Yeah, and that mini split unit will be sized to fit your space, both the size of the compressor and then how many heads you have inside. So we're thinking about what's the volume of air? How is this air going to circulate? Great. Let's spec our compressor to be big enough, and let's put heads or units where we need them. The older sort of version of mini splits, maybe 10, 15 years ago, did have trouble when we were getting into cold temperatures. But the technology has come a long way. And that drop in efficiency that was happening before has been overcome technologically. So just like Jeff said, we had some empirical data last year where, when it was in the teens, we had warm, cozy folks in our ADUs and small homes.
Great. When was the first house built under the name Backyard ADUs? You know what year?
That's a real test. I think it was
I
20.
was like, I was gonna type the answer, but I'm like, I don't actually know.
Yeah, it's 2019. Then
2019. So 5 years.
2019.
Yeah, 5 years.
That green square model in
The
Scarborough.
S line. Yeah, there was an S line in East Hampton, Mass. That was our first one.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now we have cost questions, pricing questions. If anyone has questions, it's now or never, throw them in there. So we'll get through them, but oh, before I do that, another one just came in. Because a house is all electric, can you make arrangements for a generator install?
You've worked on one of these recently. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, the short answer is yes. We can definitely plan for a generator switch in the electrical panel, and it's something that I'm pushing for, maybe up here in Maine, for as just the standard option, because it seems like a nice thing. Something we can maybe deduce from the standard package if somebody doesn't necessarily want it, but it's a nice thing to have, even if you are a future resident. Maybe you're building this for yourself or your family member, but thinking down the road, it's just a nice feature to have, and it's not that costly. So yeah, you can have a generator switch in your electrical panel where you are able to essentially choose what breakers you want to have turn on with the generator, and be able to switch off the main power coming in from the street, and then have that all connected to, you would be able to plug in your generator and have that all ran off your generator.
And a lot of homeowners on the Cape are thinking about it too, because of sometimes the frequency of power outages. So it is possible.
And are there any warranty or guarantees on our homes?
Absolutely. So we offer, like most builders, a year total coverage, everything, soup to nuts, the whole house. In our history here, that 1 year is often more than 1 year. We build really strong relationships with our customers, and we really pride ourselves on our work. Structurally, there is a 10-year warranty on the engineering and the structure coming out of our factory as well. So that's what we offer. And I'd piggyback on that too, just thinking like our engineer and design team thinks. Just building, like Jeff said, really well insulated, net zero ready homes, as we're thinking about the longevity of materials and craftsmanship. So our warranty is about a year, but when we're thinking about what's on the outside, what's on the inside, we're thinking about optimizing your return.
Yeah.
We keep losing you, Averill, into the abyss.
An issue, but everything's fine. Okay. Is there alternative wall insulation instead of fiberglass?
Yep, people could go with rock wool, or if you do some research, rock wool is available.
Yeah. Dense packed insulation is a term I've heard.
Yeah, we're blowing in cellulose into the attic space. In the factory environment, we could look at doing dense blown, but we're often trying to get that wall insulation done at the factory level.
Yeah.
But talk to your small home advisor,
yeah.
either Jeff or myself, and we can guide you appropriately.
Yeah.
Great. Now couple company questions. Do you handle it all from site selection and permit to finishing?
Yep, that's our goal, is sort of soup to nuts. Again, Jeff and I's job is to be the advisor. So from coming out to do the feasibility study, where we're getting our eyes on your site and thinking about what's possible, to move in, Backyard ADUs and our team, everyone's eyes are getting on it. We're reviewing it, designing it, engineering it, permitting it, doing the fixed price construction contract, so you know exactly what you're going to pay and exactly what you're going to get. And then we're there with you through the whole process. We're going to take some photos along the way and maybe add them into a PowerPoint presentation. But no, here's Jeff with his homeowners after their home was completed. So we really are here to help you through the whole process. And that's see why Backyard ADUs is structured like we do, is not everyone out there is going to be on your side and be with you through the whole thing. So that's what we pride ourselves on.
I just saw them last week, and there's obviously this is still in construction. You can tell by the windows and lack of things around there. Their house is looking absolutely beautiful right now. It's really good to see them and catch up with them. And I have a photo, but it's not a photo of me outside of it with them, but I have a finished photo of
great.
their house. Yeah,
Well,
it looks beautiful.
Okay, you guys don't get mad at me, but I'm gonna rush us along here because the cost
Okay.
things always take a long time, and we have 6 more questions, 15 minutes over.
Okay.
Okay,
Rapid fire.
so rapid fire, but these are tougher ones. Are property taxes also based off the square footage of that livable space you mentioned?
Yes, typically yes, and then it'll depend on how your town, if we're talking about an ADU, taxes an ADU, whether it's the incremental square footage or do they just treat it as a 2-family. But yes, they're typically looking at that livable area.
Eight. Does doing an attached unit have a similar cost as detached, or do you save money one way or the other?
Really great question. When we're attaching, we're thinking about how our foundations coming together, walls coming together, and roofs coming together. Believe it or not, if we're detached and we don't have to worry about those connections, it's often more streamlined and slightly more cost effective from a construction lens. If we're doing that attachment, it's, do we need to merge roofs? Do we need to get rid of any windows in the walls or doors? And then how are those foundations butting together? So
Siding as well comes into play. Just
yeah,
how do we? Yeah,
more work to do if you're attaching, but oftentimes that might be the best route. And so we would want to get in front of that, give you some good insight on how that attachment will work and what it might cost.
And the ever popular question, how much does it cost per square foot, especially if making a house larger?
Yes, Jeff and I, we can send you the most updated price guide so you can get a sense of where we are at in general. When we're building small homes, we still need to bring out utilities, regardless of whether we're building 500 square feet or 800 square feet or 1,200 square feet. So thinking about utility costs and site work and infrastructure, there's some of those things that we can't change. So we're often coming in pretty high on price per square foot. We're typically around like 350 or 400 these days, depending on how big you are. But a really great example, I was working with a customer the other day and they were at 720 square feet and they wanted to go up to 800. And I said, when we're already here, we already have all these fixed inputs. It's only about 130 to 150 per square foot more to get bigger. So there's a couple different ways to look at it. The price per square foot really isn't a great metric. And Backyard ADUs is trying to look at your whole project. So you know, bottom of the receipt, how much is it going to cost? So reach out to Jeff or I, we'll send you the new pricing guide. Happy to explain it because we do have some DIY options in there, which changes the price tag significantly. And then we do have sort of Backyard Basic and Backyard Select, different ways to think about what's all inside your house. What's your finish level, and you know what do we do and what do you do?
Yeah, and again, that feasibility study event that we did, if the pricing, we go into it in a lot more depth in that recording on our YouTube channel too. So check that out, and Tim explains that a little more thoroughly and with examples too.
And that answers the question from earlier: is where do you get started? Go take a look. Feasibility is our way to get eyes on your site, have engineering review it and design review it, and let you know this size to fit your needs on your lot costs X, within sort of 5 or 10%, which gets you a healthy ballpark to know, you know, does this make sense? Is this the right path forward?
Yeah.
Great. The other question is, are we partnered with any financial institutions, banks, or mortgage companies?
Yeah, so it's been tricky the past couple of years figuring out financing routes for ADUs. We work with a lot of banks. We don't have any partners currently. We were working with an agency called Renify, who was doing a renovation loan using to fund ADUs um, with sort of mixed results. On Cape, there are banks offering ADU specific products. So you could reach out to Siemens Bank or Cape Cod 5 or the co-op. They have ADU specific products. And Jeff, I don't know if anyone in Maine you're
We're
working
working
with.
on it. We're working on it.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's the next level of ADUs is figuring out. We have small home design down. We have it down to a science. We've worked really hard, especially over the past couple of years with the inflationary environment, to rein in prices and be able to do that fixed pricing. And now sort of the back end is figuring out that financing piece. Every scenario is different. So talk to Jeff or myself and we can help guide you. There are a lot of good incentive programs out there depending on where you live. So
Yes.
we can point you in the right direction.
Yep. Well said.
Have you ever found a match for someone to build an ADU or someone else's land where the two didn't know each other previously?
Great question. The short answer is no. But the longer answer, which I can't fill in all the details yet because it is a program under the works, but Backyard ADUs is working to do just that.
Mhm.
We're looking to build a model where homeowners who have the space and willingness to have an ADU built on their property would receive some sort of rent and also the ability to buy the ADU in the future at a discount. But that would allow ADUs to be built and as rentals to tackle the housing crisis. So it's in the works.
Yeah, we did have some people mention they had filled out a survey and asking if that was available, but it's being
It's in
piloted.
progress. Yeah, so we got your survey. If you have any questions, reach out. We're at the stage of gathering information and building partnerships to sort of put all the pieces in place for that.
Final question. And I already know what you're going to say, but we have a limit of 900 square feet. Would a Demona house be possible and still have 2 bedrooms?
Yeah, that's it. We didn't really talk much about the Demona today. That roof line, it's so picturesque and we get a lot of questions about it. I believe we do have an 800 square foot Demona design. So 900 square feet would work. We'd probably work with you on what we talked about earlier. How do we fit the staircase? What all are we fitting in there? And we'll also talk roof line. That Demona roof line is super cute. It is gotten very expensive. So we would look at ways, what's the curb appeal? What's in that 900 square feet? And make sure it fits your needs and ultimately your budget and your property.
Is it possible? Yes, but let's talk about
We
We'll get into the nitty gritty.
did it. That's all of them.
Great.
Great job.
Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. We've really learned a lot, building a lot of small homes. Like we said earlier, Jeff and I could talk and show examples forever. So this is a small tidbit amongst the 40 plus houses we've done. So if you have specific questions about your property or about design in general, reach out to Jeff if you're in Maine, reach out to me if you're in Massachusetts. If you're outside one of these regions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have the info@Backyard ADUs email, or Jeff or myself would be happy to answer your inquiry. But yeah, we covered a lot tonight. There's a lot of flexibility.
Recording will be out in a week.
Okay.
I try and get it sooner, but guaranteed by Wednesday, it'll be up there.
Thanks,
Awesome.
April.
And I'll be sending out that email to you, hopefully tomorrow, but potentially this weekend. And I've kept a list of notes of all of the things that we've referenced tonight. So you'll get links to all that as well.
Sorry, April, keeping it busy.
I know, I know.
Jeff and I were going through all of our photos. I think we have thousands of photos at this point. So we'll have to, now that
I know
it's.
some of them, I'm like, we have another photo of that. And I'm like, now I also have a list of all the photos that I'm like, okay, I need to go track all these down because there's so many photos.
I think it'd be really neat, yeah, to do, highlight exteriors, that outside, inside. People have done some really great things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, this is